Hey, good evening, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. Well, it's Tuesday night, and we're going to continue our project, working on the Shabby Fabrics Easy Pieced October Table Runner. And I've been doing a little bit of work this week, so I started working on it. So today, last time we talked about preparing your pieces, pre-turning them. So if anybody has any questions, let me know. Let's see, so first we're going to talk about some of the tools I use. So anyway, last time we talked about preparing the pieces. And so what you have to do is you have to, just to review, you have to take your pattern. So this would be your pattern. And if it doesn't come with a reverse applique, a reverse piece, you can either reverse it on a copy machine or photograph it and flip it. So, but if you didn't have that, another thing I like to do is I like to trace my, it's hard to see this, I trace it on a piece of Mylar, or actually this is acetate from, you know those overhead projectors that we used to have when we were kids? And the teacher would sit there and write on it and would project up on the board or up on the screen. So that's what this is. You could also use document protectors. And this is what I use to do all my placing. I don't necessarily mark the background of my background fabric. I don't put the design on the background piece itself. So instead what I do is I do crosshairs through it, and then of course this has some crosshairs. So I match this up, do that, and that way if you do this, guess what? If you turn it over, here's your reverse. So you can trace your little pieces from this side, and that way you don't have to have an extra piece of paper. The secret to get really good, almost invisible applique, what I like about needle turn that I don't get with machine applique, and I don't get with fusible. I don't like fusible too well because it's kind of, number one, it's kind of stiff, and the other thing is that it tends to fray with a lot of washing. I like all of my applique turned so that it doesn't have any raw edges, and it actually wears a lot better. But what I really like about it, I don't know if you can see it, is it literally floats off of the background fabric. You can't see any fabric. You can't see the stitching. And you can get really tiny points and corners and curves, inside and outside curves. So it does a really good job. Pre-turning it makes it a lot easier, but it just looks so much neater. But the secret to have it invisible is two things: your thread and your needle. So the needles that I like to use, the smallest needle I can deal with. I usually, now this one's empty. This one was by Peacemakers. It was a size 12 applique needle, which means they're a sharp. I tend to go through needles really fast. I usually do use a new needle with every project because I'm very hard on needles. As you'll see, the one that I've been working using, this one, it's sort of already almost bent already. Because it's a size 12, the biggest I'll use is a size 11. And I have trouble getting invisible stitches with an 11. Is because the reason I have trouble with the needle is because that needle is so thin, it's so small. It's all a little bit hard to thread because it is so small. You've got to have tiny thread. You can't use regular sewing thread, cotton thread or quilting thread. It's all too big. I like to use a size 100 thread, which is super fine. And here's some of the brands that I use. I like to use, my favorite one of all is YLI Silk. It is, I don't know if you can see this. You can't even see it on camera. It's so little, maybe. It is very, very thin. It's thin as hair. Very, very thin. YLI Silk is is my preference to use. Other ones I have used that I like is Superior Brands has one called the number 100 Silk Kimono Thread. You can get those in lots of color. And then these are available in like lots and lots of colors. And then the third one that I use, it's not my absolute favorite. Oh, there's another one. There's Aurifil. This is called Orisville, and I don't know the name of it, but it is a Mako 80 weight. And I'm not sure what it's made out of. I'd have to look it up. But it too is just as thin. The advantage to this is, to the Mako, is that it's, I think it's a quilting thread, is that it's not shiny. So it doesn't have any light reflection at all, where the silks do, a little bit. I've never had a problem with it because I pull the thread rather tight so that it stays invisible. Another one that I don't have one here, it's Bottom Line by Superior Thread. It is a 60 weight lingerie thread. It's lingerie thread, or that embroidery bobbin thread. Embroidery bobbin thread you can use. It's just as fine as the Silk 100. The disadvantage to it has a little bit of stretch to it, but that's okay. And if you're using the embroidery bobbin thread, it only comes in black and white. However, if you want different colors, then you get Bottom Line by Superior Threads. It's the same thing. So you want that really thin neat thread. One I bought and I'm not crazy about, but sometimes I will use it when I just don't have the right color, because the color of my thread is important. If you want invisible, you want the same color thread as your fabric. This one is Clover silk thread, and does it even say a size on it? It says size 50. It's thicker. I don't use it unless I don't have any other choice. If it's like, I don't have a few of these if I can't find a color, and I just bought them to try them, and I might use them to quilt with because I don't really care for it. So those are my threads. Now what I do with my threads is I have these bobbin donuts, and these are great because I wind my silk threads on here, and that way I only have to carry this around when I'm working on a project. This has all of my threads that I own right now. So I also take these shopping with me, so if I find a store that has the YLI silk, then I bring these with me, and I will go buy more colors that I don't have, because you can't possibly have all the colors, although I want all the colors. So I bring this, and when I'm traveling, and I always have to have handwork, because I don't like to, well, I'm not a crazy about driving. So my husband usually drives, and it's easier for me to have something to do than to nag him about his driving, which is nothing wrong with his driving, but that doesn't stop me from bothering him. It's just a law. Okay, so that way I've got all my colors, and they stay neat. They don't go all over the place, and so they're easy to manage. Okay, like I said, there's the Peacemakers. John James number 12 needles are very nice. Right now I'm using one of two. I'm using this as Bowen, and this is a size 12 needle, very thin. Some people will use a straw needle, which is a sharp needle, but it's very long. I tend to snap those needles like there's no tomorrow. Snap them in half constantly. And my very favorite needle is by Thimble Lady, Lucien Newman. She's out of Australia, so whenever I buy her needles, I use the small ones. They come small, medium, and large, and I use the small for my applique, which is equivalent to a 12. I use medium for my quilting, so I do like those. But when I order something from her, I usually buy about 4 or 5 of these. It comes actually 25 in a package, so you know I do a lot of applique, but I do break them a lot, so therefore I always have a good supply of needles on hand. Is you need a good pair of scissors. My very favorite scissors for applique is Karen K. Buckley. They're micro serrated. They're a little pricey, but they cut right to the tip, and they will cut very nicely. My second favorite are my Bowens. These are my Bowen scissors, and these are for paper. Okay, no, another tool that I have is this. You know what this is? I have arthritis, especially in this finger, and it hurts like the devil to be pulling that needle through. I can't grab it, I can't hold on to it. It hurts, so I either have to use one of these fingers or get a pliers. I don't want to do that. But if I put this, and what is this? Piece of a balloon. You just simply take the paper scissors, cut the top off, and just cut a piece of it. And you can have lots of them if you buy, you know, the skinny balloons. And this just fits on my thumb. Get it? Oh, it's, when you cut it, it sticks. You just put it on your thumb, and that's going to grip that needle a lot easier with a whole lot less pain. So, okay. So, what else? It also helps to have a pair of tweezers to help place things, and of course, you know, you always have glue. Elmer's washable school glue. Stuff's magic. Love it. Okay, let's see. Oh, another thing that helps. This I got from Thimble Lady. I can't honestly say that I have used it very often, and what it is it looks like a pen, but when you push on it, it is a very sharp, almost like a needle. And what you can do is you can trace around your piece, and that scores your fabric for you. It helps it to turn a little easier. But you know what else works really well? A pin works just as well, for especially when you've got tight corners. So yes, I do thimbles. Okay. My mother, who was a master seamstress, would always yell at me and say, "You are never going to be a seamstress. You're never going to sew very well unless you learn to use a thimble." Well, I guess I don't know how to sew very well because I hate thimbles. Always have hated thimbles. Probably always will hate thimbles. Okay. I bought this one. It's okay. But I can't feel through it. But I can live with it. If I use this sometimes when I'm doing binding on my quilts. It's too thick to really feel through, so I don't like that one. A leather thimble. Again, same thing. Don't like it. Okay? What I do like is this stuff called thimblets. Okay? They're little plastic pieces, and they have an adhesive on them. And see if you can see it like this. And they stick on your finger. This is way too big. My hands are small, and I really don't need but a third of it. So what I do is I simply take my paper scissors and I cut it. I've had this for years because you get, I think, 24 of them. It'll last you for a long time because you can sew all afternoon off of 1/3. So I just cut it in thirds. There it is. And I will cut. See how it, if you can see, it's got those sharp edges. I'll just sort of round those with the scissors. And then this is my finger I use, so I just put it right up underneath of the nail, right here, if you can see that, and plaque it down, and it's going to be there all afternoon. And it does protect, and if it gets worn and it starts to hurt, change it. You can get 3 sometimes, depending on how big your fingers are. You could probably get 4, but I get 3 out of them, where I simply, see how I've cut it, next one I'll cut the other side, and then I'll have the middle, and I'll just round all 4 corners. And this lasts me for 3 days. One lasts for 3 days with a lot of stitching. So that's what I use. So, and these things. These are my ugly glasses. But I can see with them. These are the ones I took. These are bifocals. Those are the most useless things on earth. They're fine if you sew, you know, like this. You know, like you're reading. I sew like this. So I need them to be in a different place. Last time, I've got 3 pairs of glasses for sewing. The ones that I do normally when I walk around, which have my distance, because I'm very, 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 very nearsighted. So I have very thick glasses. Then I have some, these are what I call my mid-distance. These I use for my long arm and for when I'm doing hand sewing, but not hand sewing on the couch. When I'm downstairs, I got another pair, which is set a little bit lower, because that way I can sit there and sort of relax and sew. Where if I'm sitting upright, my hands are here. So These frames were actually my mother's. She bought these just before she passed away and never used them, so I had the lenses changed out. And they have rhinestones, so I got my bling. Alrighty, so we're going to put on the other part of this pumpkin. We're going to prepare this piece. So let me just move this out of the way. I put a piece of paper down, and I've got my piece cut out. And you will notice, and let's try this. We'll try this thing, see how it works. I know I've got to turn corners here, so let's see if this really works. I know it does, but I don't ever use it. So let's just try it. Okay. Glue, my favorite glue. Now, where I know this part is going to tuck up underneath the next piece, which is the middle of the pumpkin, so I'm going to leave my little bit less than 1/4 of an inch there and just leave it open. And I'm going to just turn these two edges. So here we go. And this is just review from last time. Here we go. And put the lid on. Okay, now I have this covered with duck cloth, and duck cloth doesn't stick. Nothing sticks to it, at least so far. Or you could use a Teflon sheet or something, or a press sheet underneath. But I don't want it, so you're going to take, remember this, the screwdriver that you've also lifted. Here we go. Alrighty. So now I've got glue on the selvage, or on the seam allowance, and then I just take my screwdriver. Now, this is not 100% cotton. This is annoying fabric. It doesn't want to stick. So, see, it's going to let loose. In that case, I'm going to put my iron on. And I'm going to have to. It's best to use 100% cotton, but for me the color was more important. Okay, as it starts getting away from me, I'm just going to take the tip of the iron and heat set that down. There we go. See, now it's not going to move on you. Okay, and then continue. A little more. I don't trust it. If you see any little points, you can actually take it while the glue is still wet. You can move it and then grab it. There. Heat sets it down, glues it to, no, so it won't move. Okay. And I'm not going to do, ooh, that looks terrible. Fix that so that it's nicer. But pumpkins aren't perfect either, right? Okay, and then, okay. And it's good and stuck. Okay, so now we're ready to put this on the background. Okay. So I'm going to take my acetate piece, and I do have to watch it around the iron because I have been known, yeah, I don't have to say it out loud, to melt the acetate. Yeah, that's happened before. Okay, so I'm going to match it up, and I have crosshairs in here that are pressed in. It's kind of hard to see them, but I have enough of this done where I can match up the rest of it. Okay, so I'm going to put glue through the center, but leave the edges. Not a whole lot of glue, just through the middle. Okay. And I'm going to put this with the tweezers, hold the rest of it sort of still where it needs to go, and just slip this underneath. Place it where it needs to go. Right into place. So push it down, heat set it. It's not going anywhere, okay?
if you find that the edges lift, because what I tend to do is I put everything down in one layer. So I put all of these fence pieces in, and as I'm working around, these are lifting. So if you're finding they're lifting, what you can do is use these, where do I have any? These little teeny applique pieces, or applique pins. Look how tiny these pins are. They're teeny, teeny, tiny. They're about not even a ½ inch long. And you can actually just pin the corners in just to hold it still. Okay, and you could even put in another one. I tend to do that when I'm getting really rowdy or I've got a lot of pieces I'm applying at one time, because I take it upstairs on the 3rd floor to my sewing room and glue all my pieces down. Then I go sit in front of the TV and stitch them. And I'll tend, these will all lift away by the time I'm done with this side. So I usually will pin them and then take them out as I go along. Okay, so now we're going to sew this down. We need to thread the needle. So here's my needle. And you see it's already not quite, it's hard to tell, but it's not quite straight anymore. But I only have a few more pieces to put on this, so we're going to make it last. So I want to use a color that is the same color as the background. And I'm going to show you how I thread these. You want a nice, clean cut. Okay, because this is very tiny. You're going to hold this thread so that less than, maybe about an eighth, well, actually about an eighth of it sticks out beyond your finger. If you can see that. Where's my hand? Oh, there's the camera up that side. Okay, so then I know my needle is, I can see the opening to the needle. I'm just going to run it flat and just aim for it. And I got it offhand. And you know something, to be honest with you, I didn't see it. You just sort of can feel where it is. Then I'm going to do a knot. So I'll just do a quilter's knot, which is turn it, turn it, turn it, turn it. And then you hold this. So what I did, let me show you. Again, if you've not quilted before, you may not know this knot. Okay. Okay, so you take your needle. You bring the tail end around so that it meets. Grab it, turn it about 6 times or so, because this is such thin thread. If it's regular quilting thread, just do 3, maybe 4. Then slide it, hold it in between your fingers, slide it all the way down, and now you've got a nice knot. It's hard to see because it's so tiny. Okay, and I'm just gonna chop it off, chop off the tail. Okay, now to keep the needle from falling off is you take the short end, okay? You're going to make, over here, you're going to bend it in half. Hold both edges through lightly in your fingers, and then run your needle through. Don't pierce your fingers, but you just want to pierce the threads. See how it does? Let me get a piece of paper so you can see. See, it's in a U right here. See that? Okay, then you're going to take that in and do that one more time. So you end up with an S. There we go. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? The S shape? It's going like this. Then you slide that down. And it's perfectly flat. You can't feel it. And your needle will not pop off. So you can't get it off. I'll pull it down because that's going to make that too long. There. Okay. Now we're going to stitch. Okay. So let's see if I can get this into the camera. Alrighty, right here. This part is going to go underneath of a piece. So why spend a lot of time stitching it? That's usually where I will slide my knot, put the needle underneath into the background fabric and then up. So it's catching the background fabric and it's just coming up about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of that fabric. And I'm just going to do a running stitch all along here. Okay. I'm going to take those pins out because that's kind of annoying. And they're in the way. Put that there so they don't fall down on the floor in case Miss Lily comes in here. Okay, I'm just going to do a running stitch along any part of it that's going to be underneath of another piece. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing stitching there. I just need to hold it down so it doesn't flap around. It come to the end. And that balloon makes it a lot easier. Now, I got these little tadpole-y things sticking out, little dog ears. I'll just chop them off, but you don't have to. It's going to be hidden anyway. Okay. Now I'm going to start the actual stitching. So I'm going to go straight down, come up, and just about 1/8 of an inch away, just catch literally 1 or 2 threads on the corner. There we go. Alrighty. So let me just show you on a piece of paper what I'm talking about. So here's our curve. And I picked one that is out of ink. This will work. Okay. Here's my curve. Okay, my stitch is going to come up under here into this, let's say here's where my stitch is, where that little corner is, or right where the fold is. I'm going to stitch literally right underneath of this in the background fabric, and I'm going to advance that needle up underneath, and I want to come over here. So just to exaggerate, this is going straight out. What you don't want to do is your needle comes up over here, and you don't want to put it down, say, over here, because now that's going to lay across and you're going to see that thread. So this is exaggerated here to here. And then this is going to come up under the fabric here to here. Exaggerated. Way, way, way exaggerated. So let's see. Let's do a few of these. Okay. Alrighty. See, right here's the thread. Go right up underneath and come up. And then you'll hold your thumbnail right there and you'll feel it. And actually, because your pieces are pre-turned, you can actually go pretty fast. Usually I take about 3 stitches and I will stop and give that a little tug. What that does is it rolls the fabric underneath. And continue on. Now this is going over another piece. It is not necessary to go all the way back through the background. Just go over that last piece. Don't want to come out here. You don't want to go underneath. You just want to come right to the edge and over. And you can go pretty fast. And I'm just pushing it with the plastic thimble. Okay, there we go. I know this is a fairly long piece. Does anybody have any questions? You can't see, Judy? Can you see now? There we go. Go really close. Okay, straight down. Or I'm taking that C straight. Straight down, curve it under, picking up some background piece, and just literally picking 1 or 2 threads right at the edge of the fold. How long are my stitches? Actually, it depends on the piece. It depends on how much you turn over. the stitches have to be a little less than whatever you turned over. So if your seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch, your stitches only need to be about a little tiny bit less than 1/4 of an inch. If you made it bigger than 1/4 of an inch, with washing the seam is going to come popping out. So if you have a 1/16 of an inch, you're going to go really close. Other places you go close is anytime you're dealing with a point or an inside curve. You're going to, and I'll show you that. I'll do an inside curve in a little bit because I'm going to show you how where things didn't look so hot. I tend to do mine really close together. Mostly because I'm not looking, I'm feeling. And I literally feel it, and my stitches are about 1/8 of an inch apart. We're almost there. Grab. It is easier to go through just plain background fabric. When you're dealing with the other pieces, sometimes it gets a little hard. And having a new needle helps. When it's getting hard to push the needle through the fabric, it could be the fact that your needle's getting dull. It's time to change it out. I tend to do that, and that could be, see, I just changed needles and this feels good. This afternoon, that other one was starting to hurt all the time because I'm over 25. Not much over 25, so don't ask. Okay, you can't see the knot at the needle. You just want, okay, we'll do it again. We'll do it again. I'm going to use black thread the next time because I got to fix something that you can actually fix with your... Alrighty, I'm coming near the end. I will usually overlap by a stitch or two just to make sure I didn't leave a gap. Okay, and I will, I'll just do an extra stitch here, which is a running stitch. Just take my needle straight down and through the back. Okay, and then I just do a regular, take a little tiny stitch, like 1 or 2 threads, and then just do a regular knot. I don't know what it's called. I've just done this knot my whole life, which I call it like, it's almost like a chain stitch knot. You just make a loop, put that inside, put this inside 2 or 3 times, or however long you feel like doing it. Pull it straight, and then I usually will run it through the fabric, through the surface layer. Not so it doesn't come through the other side, but it's between the layers. And because if you cut a knot right next to where you have made the knot, it can work loose. If you leave at least 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch tail, that knot's not going to work out loose. And now it's ready for the next piece. Okay, so let me... And so I would go back and put this other piece on there, which is this one, which I've already turned it. And then stitch all the way around. Again, I've got another overlapping piece right here, so I'd probably start it right there. Whenever you have a fully rounded piece, say this is the little inside of the cauldron, it's perfectly rounded, I just pick the flattest spot, and that's where I start it. And just start with the little tiny, they call those, they're not blind stitches, what are they called? Ladder stitches, that's what it's called. Okay, now, I'll take this little pin out because I stitched all of these. But look really close here. See? I don't know if you can see that. See that these little threads hanging out? I didn't get the corners very well. But that's okay. We can fix it with the stitching because these corners didn't look any better when I did that too. So what I'm going to do is let me get some black thread. The length that you cut your thread, you want to cut your thread, it says ideally 12 to 18 inches. I tend to do mine a lot bigger because I hate to thread needles.
with a passion. So I hate to make knots. Okay, so now how I thread the needle. I'm going to thread the needle first, so I pinch it between my fingers really tight, and then I just leave a tiny bit out. And there we go. Okay, knot. For doing the knot again, you take the point of the needle, you take the end of the thread, see, so it's a big circle. Hold on to the end of the thread, wrap it several times, push it down, grab that wind with your thumb, and then just squeeze it and pull it down all the way to the end, and now you've got a knot. And usually I will slip that knot about 1/8 of an inch away for starting. Because why I clip that really close to the knot is because the first stitch I take is a double stitch in order to lock it in. Okay, so over here where it's messy, okay, I'm going to come in, I'm going to start on the straightaway. There we go. Okay, and again, the first thing I do is just a stitch in place right next to the knot like we were doing. Nice and close. My thimble is slipped. There. Alrighty, I'm going to start taking my needle and shoving that in. If it doesn't go easily, if it doesn't want to go easily, take a pin, dip it in a little bit of that glue, then use this pin to sweep the corner. So here's my corner. I just reach in with the pin, you can see that, and push it in. There's a teeny bit of glue that's going to make that little fuzzy bit stay inside. Then you're going to stitch to the, when you can't see it, you pull your thread so you know where it comes straight out. Go straight in, and I'm going to go to that corner. As I approach the corner, the stitches get smaller and smaller and smaller. And the reason is because there's really only a stitch or two. There's really not even sometimes a thread holding that corner. It's starting to pull out, so I will fit it in again, and I'm going to take, now the last one is right into the diagonal and go straight like this. Take a stitch, not going through the background, just going through the applique piece, and then I pull and tug. That's going to pull that corner sharp. Here's what I'm talking about. So here's my corner. Okay, here's my stitch normally. Say 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. As I approach this corner, these get smaller and smaller and smaller until I have one here, and I'm going to take one thread and I'm going to come out a little bit in, maybe a 1/16 of an inch in from that corner, bring my thread out. Then I'm going to run that needle up underneath of this corner and come, in other words, make a loop in this same hole, because then when you pull it, it's going to pull this corner sharp. And then you're going to take your next stitch right here in the corner and go this way. So, and then again, same thing. When you're coming out of it, you're going to take a tiny stitch, and then gradually get bigger to what you need. That's how you get really sharp corners. Same thing if your point is this way, okay? Because they're pre-turned, we're going to talk, when we do in 2 weeks, we will do traditional needle turn with a Hawaiian applique. We're going to do a Hawaiian applique, and we will have sharp points, but doing it a different method. So, but it's still the same thing, that you're going to stitch this, say this is your stitch length, and as you approach the corner,
that get smaller, you take one into the center, go straight out a little bit beyond the piece, maybe about 1/8 of an inch, then come back in the same hole, and then start going down the other side and making them small to gradually bigger. That's how you get nice sharp points. So anyway, so back to this. Again, now I've made it into the corner, I'm going to sweep the other side. And see, it doesn't want to stay. Nope, it's got a fuzzy that is not cooperating. Okay, well, a fuzzy is not cooperating, so I'm going to get my trusty pin. Wet it with the glue. Just get it a little tacky. And we'll put it in there and make it stay. There we go. And now I hold it. I pinch it and hang on to it for dear life. Don't let it go. And then we start in this corner here. I've got it jammed into the corner, and now I'm coming straight down. Tiny bit bigger than a thread, and now I'm going to take a couple tiny stitches, working my way out, grabbing a thread or two. And now I'm back to regular stitch length, which is still 1/8 of an inch. Okay. And see, now to see how my stitches look against a background piece, I'll show you the back. And no, it's not as neat as my mother would have liked it. When you did something for her, it better look the same on the back as it does on the front, or she wouldn't be happy. She would not be happy. She would not like these knots, you know, but it's gonna back. It's gonna be covered by quilting. Who cares? Okay, but see, here's how the stitches look from the back. They're very tiny. Here's my running stitches when I have overlap. And see, here we go. Just little, this one's got a lot of curves and a lot of points. So there's a lot of tiny, see how the stitches are very tiny in the points and around the outside pieces. Otherwise, I tend to do everything little anyway because I do it by feel. It's not because I'm any great seamstress. I just do this by feel. See that almost, wow, that one looks good. So, I'm surprised. So anyway, what I'm going to do this week is finish this off and work on. Now, granted, this is probably not a piece I would start as a beginner. This has got a lot of points, inside, outside curves, and the worst ones of all to do were these. Look how teeny tiny they are. That's a lot of tight curves. This was a little tough, but this is the most challenging of them all. So I would recommend starting with something simple, easy to not really sharp points and curves and that kind of stuff. You know, make it easy on yourself. Do lots, like daisies are great because they're just round. So I want you to try some of these things and try to applique. I like it needle turn. I don't think anything looks prettier than a needle turn applique. Like I said, it just floats right off of the fabric. And you swear that you could pick it off, but you can't. It's sewn in there, and it's sewn in very tightly, as you can see. So like I said, to get this invisible line, you're going to take about 3 stitches and then give that thread a little bit of a tug, which is why you don't want to use a cheap 2-ply like serger thread. In fact, bottom line isn't my favorite because it is only 2-ply. It tends to break a little more easily in fray because it's only 2. And also, the other thing too, I'm my own worst enemy. When you make that thread too long and you keep sewing with it, after a while it's kind of frayed and it's going to pop on, break on you. But that's my own fault. I know better. If you make it 12 to 18 inches, you're going to run out of thread long before it wears out to where it's going to start breaking on you. But you know, I'm hard-headed. I'm going to do it the other way. I do things the hard way. So, alrighty, let's do the knot again. Okay, let me get the white. I take the end of the thread and I pinch it between my fingers and I see where it disappears. Then I take that needle and just go down and see it catches it. Ta-da! Okay. Red thread. Okay. To keep the thread from falling off of your needle, take that short end. You know, this one would have the knot. This one is your short end. You're going to take this short end and you're going to fold it in half. Like that. You see? Hold it like this and just make a loop. Okay, loosely hold your fingers together and run your needle through it. I got one, but not the other. Try it again. Sometimes I have a hard, there we go, felt it. And then if you want a little more security, run it a third time. So turn that upward. Okay. See how it makes that S pierce through? Then just slide it down. You can't feel it. It's nice and flat, but your needle won't fall off. See, that needle's not going anywhere. And you can sew yourself silly. Now, occasionally I'll tug so hard I'll pull the fibers right out. And again, you could make to make the knot again, take the tip and the end, make a big circle. Twist, 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 wrap it around. Grab the end where you got it all wound, pull it through, and there you go, got a knot. See the knot? And then I just, if it's too long, just cut some of it off, and now you're ready to stitch. Awesome. Works every time. I do that with all of, no matter what I'm sewing. So if I'm sewing binding, button, whatever I'm doing, I will throw that, because we will not discuss how angry someone gets if they sit on a needle that I've dropped in the couch. They don't like that. I don't like that. It only happened once. Not again. So, any questions? Okie doke. So anyway, that's all I've got for today. Oh, no. It's terrible to be blind. If you have any questions, send me an email to waltzquilt, that's WALTZQUILT @yahoo.com, and feel free to send me any comments or suggestions or anything else you'd like to see me cover. And I just hope everybody stays comfortable and happy and healthy, mostly healthy. So have a great week. Bye. See you later.